this film Inside Out 2, so I was trying to rank all 28 Pixar movies from worst to best. Coming in last place at number 28 is Turning Red, which is probably my most divisive and controversial opinion on this channel. Look, I don't have a problem that this movie deals with mature topics like puberty and periods. What I have a problem with is it deals with these topics, and none of this was in any of the marketing. The marketing made it seem like this was going to be about a movie about a girl turns into a cute panda when she gets angry, like the Hulk, and all of the marketing was focused on the panda. It conveniently left out the true content of the movie, so when a parent goes to put this movie on Disney Plus, all they're going to see is the cute panda on the poster, and their 6-year-old is going to be wanting to watch a movie that's way too mature for them. If this movie was PG-13, I'd be less harsh, but it was the deceptive marketing that ticks me off. And on top of that, the animators thought it'd be absolutely hilarious to animate an underage girl twerking. Go ahead and try to defend that. They so desperately wanted to see an underage girl twerking, they deliberately animated it and included it in the movie. Absolutely indefensible. There's also a weird out of place abortion reference near the end used as a joke. The main character is annoying and unlikable, and at the end of the day, this movie is just a ripoff of Teen Wolf. Yet, for some reason, whenever I rant about this movie, the Disney adults attack me and try to convince me about how great it is, like it's a priceless work of art that needs to be preserved. I just don't get it. Number 27, A Bug's Life. After the masterpiece that was Toy Story, this movie is a huge step down, both with its animation quality and story. The characters are ugly, the tone is cynical, and it's just a ripoff of Three Amigos. The movie is oddly mean spirited, and overall it's just unpleasant. Number 26, Cars 2. Cars 1 isn't that great either, but what a weird idea for a follow up. In one movie, we went from racing to James Bond with cars, and also making Mater the main character who gets annoying very quickly. It's also surprisingly dark and violent for its G rating. Scenes of gun violence and a scene where a spy car is tortured to death. If they were humans in this situation, it would have been rated R. This movie basically just took those Mater's tall tale sorts and did a whole movie out of them, and it's not good. Number 25, Wally. The first half of this movie is pretty good. Emotion is expressed through no dialogue, and the love story between the two robots is very cute. And then the second half happens, and it just rips off 2001: A Space Odyssey. And I think the first half of this movie really should have just been served as a short and not an entire film. Number 24, The Good Dinosaur. Personally, I blame the behind the scenes production problems around this turned out. The original movie was supposed to be very different. The original idea was, what if dinosaurs never went extinct, so humans domesticated them? It was supposed to have all these big stars such as Neil Patrick Harris, but for one reason or another, the movie just wasn't working, so they completely rewrite the script and gave us something completely different. And what we got was barely passable. It's basically just Lion King with a bit of Ice Age, and while it has fantastic animation, the story just isn't that interesting. Number 23, Cars. When you think about it, there's really no reason for these characters to be cars. It's not like Zootopia, where the characters being animals helps immerse you in the world of the movie, and there's a very specific reason for it. You could easily swap out the car characters to be humans, and it would be pretty much the same movie. The story is fine, but it just doesn't have that Pixar charm or heart for me. Number 22, Lightyear. The movie where every character is underdeveloped and doesn't really give you enough time or information to care about them. The way the plot and characters are structured feels like you outlined rather than a finished script, and it feels very rushed. Number 21, Elemental. A Pixar movie that has a cool concept but poor execution. On a story and character level, it's just very lazy and predictable and super, super heavy handed. This is a Prejudice's bad story that we already did with Zootopia. And if Zootopia was too simple for you, don't worry. This will really hammer home the point they're trying to make. Which is sad, because the world of this movie they created is really fun. There's a lot of vibrancy, there's a lot of creativity, it's very nice visually, but all the jokes were used in the trailer. And the problem is there's not really any complexity to these characters. They only have one trait, and even then they don't really overcome their character flaws. And honestly, I think this movie would have worked better if the relationship between the two characters was platonic. Because since it's a forbidden love story, you get all the rom-com cliches. If the movie had gone, well, maybe we're not necessarily compatible as a couple because I'm fire, you're water, we can still have a great friendship, that might have worked a lot better. I think it would have subverted the expectations a bit more, but instead made it a cliche, lazy, heavy-handed story that's going to be forgotten pretty quickly. Number 20, Brave, a movie that is both Scottish Mulan and a ripoff of Brother Bear. So much so that it might as well be called Mother Bear. I like that Pixar tried to do a different kind of princess movie, and I like the exploration of Scottish culture, and I love the music in this movie, but the story is just so paint by numbers. Number 19, Luca. For a Pixar movie, this feels very safe and familiar. I like the character designs, they're very different than the other Pixar films, and just like Ratatouille transports you to Paris, this movie feels like it transports you to Italy. But unfortunately, this is another Pixar movie where the story is incredibly uninteresting. The movie revolves around the characters trying to win a bike. That's it. There's not much conflict. It's just very bland. Number 18, Finding Dory. A movie about a main character who forgets everything is in itself pretty forgettable. It doesn't have as much heart as the original, the new characters aren't that interesting, and it just feels like a cheap, lazy sequel. Number 17, Incredibles 2. One of my biggest disappointments. It took almost 15 years for this movie to come out, and instead of expanding on the ideas of the original by having the characters fight crime as a family, it takes backseat to essentially make it an Elastigirl spin-off movie. If it were called Elastigirl, I'd be less harsh, but it's not as interesting as the first film. Number 16, Onward. A movie that, given its premise, was more creative. You got Chris Pratt and Tom Holland playing elf brothers who live in an anachronistic fantasy setting, and you could have a lot of fun with this, but instead we get a generic, predictable road trip movie, and all the jokes feel like ones that were done much better in Shrek. Number 15, Cars 3. I know saying that this is the best of the Cars movies isn't saying much, and while in some ways it does, no pun intended, feel like a course correction of Cars 2, it serves more as a way to honor the memory of Paul Newman. It's definitely the most mature of the Cars movies, and while I do think the ending is a bit dumb, it does feel like there was genuine effort and passion put into this one. Number 14, Monsters University. This unnecessary prequel to Monsters Inc. It's still pretty fun, it has great new characters, but this just feels like a pilot episode of that Monsters at Work show that's on Disney Plus. Number 13, Toy Story 4. And let's close out Woody's story. The new characters in this film are delightful and hilarious. The movie still manages to have some complex ideas, as well as a highly emotional and satisfying ending. Number 12, Toy Story. A movie with a simple enough story and characters that's iconic because it was the first ever film to be completely computer animated, and look where we are now. It's got mass appeal to both kids and adults with its humor and characters, and there's a reason it put Pixar on the map. Number 11, Toy Story 3. Fantastic way to close out the story of Andy with a plot that goes in some unexpectedly dark directions and still managed to end on a definitely bittersweet note. Number 10, Toy Story 2. A rich second entry better than the original film, dealing with themes like growing up, abandonment, and has even more heart than the original. Number 9, Inside Out 2. Like I said, last time Pixar did a movie involving puberty, which was Turning Red, and I was not very kind on that movie, I was extremely skeptical about this one. I am pleased to report that Inside Out 2 is a delightful return to form for Pixar. It manages to tackle the concept of puberty in a child friendly way by simply saying that it's like when a caterpillar turns into a butterfly and leaves it at that. It doesn't go into any of like the birds and the bees aspects of it, which is what I was worried about. And the sequel does what all good sequels do, where it expands on the ideas of the original. It introduces more complex and abstract ideas such as one's belief system. The new emotions are also very cleverly written and designed, particularly envy, who is the shortest of all the emotions, and embarrassment, who is the largest. Embarrassment doesn't want to be noticed, but he's so big one can't help but notice him. And then there's envy, who is mad that she isn't as tall as the other emotions. There's a particularly fun scene where some of the emotions are divulged secrets, and one of Riley's secrets is that she still likes a show that's aimed at preschoolers, and that character is very clearly based on Bluey. It was a fun way to lovingly poke fun at the older kids and adults who watch Bluey. There's also a few different animation styles in this film, such as that Bluey parody character, but also a video game character in Riley's mind that's animated like an 8-bit game. And the different styles blended very well, and it feels like Pixar is really trying to surpass the standard for animation, which is something I haven't been able to say for a while. It does rehash a few of the ideas from the first film, such as the triple dent gut running joke, and the main message is essentially the same as the first film. It's okay to feel negative emotions and you learn to deal with it in a healthy way. The first film, sadness was used as the scapegoat they had to learn how to deal with. Here, it's anxiety. The film definitely breathes some much needed fresh life into Pixar. While it's not as good as the first one due to some ideas being reused, I still say it's a worthy sequel. Much like Pixar's earlier films, there's something for everyone. Number 8, Finding Nemo. Made more for the parents of the audience, though kids can still enjoy it. Messages about letting your kids learn from their mistakes and staying big overprotective, a main character who overcomes his disability, and a fun, vibrant landscape with lovable characters and sharp writing. Number 7, Inside Out. Presents complex, abstract ideas and does it in a way that's age appropriate, and it has a fantastic voice cast as well as a lot of emotion. What does hold it back a bit is it is a bit inconsistent because like all the parents' emotions are the same gender as them, yet Riley has both male and female emotions, and some of the ideas like dreams being movies were already done in films like Osmosis Jones, but this is still great. Number 6, Ratatouille. An absolutely out of the box idea about a rat who wants to be a chef. The film does a fantastic job of transporting the audience to Paris. The message of the film is very inspiring, and it's a lot funnier. If you look at this movie as a metaphor for Disney's current state, it's funnier. What I mean by that is, Let's not create. Let's just make cheaper copies of the stuff that already exists. The guy who owned the company who believed in passion and creativity is gone. What's he going to do about it? Like mass producing Gusteau's recipes as frozen foods, even if they make no sense, such as a French restaurant selling fried chicken, corn dogs, and Chinese food. That's Disney mass producing cheap sequels or remakes. Hopefully, one day we get a Remy Linguini in charge of Disney who run the show and bring creativity and heart back to Disney. Number five, the first 15 minutes of this movie alone are emotional enough, but then the movie continues and it gets even more so. A creative idea, fantastic characters, tons of humor, and a lot of emotion. Number four, Monsters Inc. A wildly creative and charming movie. The film has a fun world to spend time in with great characters, a ton of laughs, and trademark Pixar heart. Number three, Coco. A vibrant and colorful Pixar movie with probably its most evil villain. The culture of the film was well explored, the story is fantastic, though a bit convoluted at points, and it's a film that everyone, regardless of culture, can identify with. Number two, Incredibles. Fantastic throwback to the golden age of comics with well done action, a fantastic Michael Giacchino score, a great family dynamic, a great villain, and for years it was my favorite Pixar movie. But then number one came out and dethroned it, and if you're watching this channel for a few years, you know what it is. Say it with me now. It is Soul. If Coco explored the idea of what happens when you die, this film explores what happens before you're born. The message about finding your purpose in life is powerful and universally relatable. The rules of the film are well thought out. It's got some of the best characters of Pixar. It's an optimistic, hopeful film, and it comes in at number one. So let me know what you think is the best. Let me know what you're ranking the Pixar movies, and I will see you next time.